Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Meta Cafe. Grab your cup of coffee. You can see mine. I've already been doing coffee. I'm caffeinated. Anyway, grab your cup of coffee, your tea, your water, whatever your pleasure, and sit back and let's talk about astrology this morning. What a crazy, crazy day I'm going to have. And I'm excited because it came totally unexpected last evening about 9 o'clock, and I'm not sure who had something to do with this. It could have been Angie, because I'm going to be on her page tonight talking about human design. And suddenly about 9 o'clock my time, I started getting these emails one after the other, and they were requests for human design charts. And by the time, and I'm tired, by that time of night, I'm not going to my computer and starting to work because I know my human design, right? I know when to turn off my engines. And good morning, Michelle, and good morning, Mimi. It's good to see you out there this morning. And by the time it was all said and done, I have 30 requests for human design charts today. Now, that's not an unusual number if you're thinking of it over the span of a week or even a month, but in one night, oh my gosh. So if you're listening this morning and you're someone who just requested your chart last night, I am going to do my best to get them out there today for everybody. But I also have clients for the day, and I have a talk to prepare for this evening. So I'll do my best to get them out to you. But thank you, whomever the angel was that started sending a bunch of people to my website. I love it, and I love you all, and I will do my best to get them out. Let's see who's joined us. Good morning, Suzanne. Michelle. Oh, Michelle says that's awesome. So tomorrow, Michelle and Londa, who we see here in the morning, and another friend of Londa's named Stephanie, we're all going to be getting together to play a game. The game is called the Transformation Game. And you might think, oh, game, lots of fun. Well, it is fun, but it is a game that is about transforming something in your life. And it's really magical. If none of you have ever, I wish you all lived in my neighborhood. We would have the best game ever. But if you've never played, this is a game that literally is magical and will literally rock your world. There's never been a time that I've played the game that something extraordinary hasn't come out of it for me or for the players or for the group. It's almost like by playing the game, you've invited your angels to come in or your guides, whatever you want to call them, and they participate in this game with you. So I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's transformation game with Michelle and with Londa. And I know Suzanne Bronlin says, I would love to play. I don't know where you live, Suzanne. If you live near me, maybe one of these days you can come and do this. I wish it was a game that we could play online. I just, where we could get in a Zoom room together and play. I would have to really think about that and see if that would be possible. I don't think it would. I don't know. That I would really have to work on that one in my head for a while. But game, and one of the things I wanted to transform, which is hysterically funny, is how to get more people getting charts. And then suddenly these 30 requests, and there could be more because I keep hearing my phone dinging in the background, that people wanting charts. And that is like a dream come true, right? Get people's charts into their hands and get them learning about their human design, get them living the life they're meant to live. And then we create a snowball effect in the world of people living their life on their terms. And that creates joy and love and happiness, and that rolls out of them and toward their family, their friends, their communities. We could really create a snowball effect when more and more people are living according to the truth of who they are and not from a conditioned field, a conditioned world that has them doing things exactly the opposite of what they are meant to be. Had a great example of this yesterday. Good morning, Laura Hammer. I don't I haven't seen you out there in a while. Debbie, you've made it 2 days in a row. Wow. I love it. It's great to see you. Suzanne, you are near me. Okay, well, message me off air and we can talk about, how you can join into the game. And Michelle says, so magical. 2 or 3 times we've played, there have been, I can't read the rest. It just went away. Oh yeah, thunder and lightning, which, we live up in Washington State. I mean, literally we have a lot of rain, but we don't get thunder and lightning very often. And one day we were playing, twice now we've played this game and had thunder and lightning, almost like nature approving of what we're doing or waking us up. Or Debbie joined us the last time. That's right. Debbie was in Washington at my house that time. That was awesome fun. So the game is magical and I love that game. So anyway, totally different subject, but I just had to throw it out there because if you are in a community that has a metaphysical bookstore or a metaphysical healing center, you might check in with them and see if they ever host transformation games. It was a game that was actually developed at Findhorn, which is an intentional community that was started in Scotland, I believe it is. And they played this game and they actually created this game and then, eventually package it up and sell it. And when I owned a metaphysical bookstore, we used to have games there, game nights. We had 2 games, 2 boards. You can only play with 4 players unless you team up, and you could have, you'd have to have multiples of 4. And then you play as teams or you play as a group. And it's more chaotic that way, but we could certainly, do that in a store setting. And so maybe if you guys check in with your community centers or your community metaphysical stores, you might find people that are playing this game. And I would highly recommend it. So we are going to wax a little bit astronomical this morning because something really fascinating is happening tonight. Fascinating. I mean, I don't know. You guys have probably heard me talk many times about the fact I go outside at night and I look up at the sky because I really connect to the stars above, the planets. And there's something mystical and magical I can connect to, something that's bigger than myself. It kind of puts into perspective your day, right? When you go outside and you realize you're just this little teeny speck on this little teeny planet, and up ahead of you or above you is this vast otherworldly diamonds in the sky, right? To quote Rihanna. And at any rate, this evening, right after the sun sets, so wherever you are, it'll be, in our area, it's like 9:30 or 9-ish night now when the sun is setting, and you will see the super crescent moon. I had to go look this up, a super crescent moon, because I didn't realize that we were at a point in the moon Earth relationship where it is a super moon, meaning the moon is coming within the 90% of the closest it ever comes to the Earth. So we have a super crescent moon conjunct the planet Venus. And if you look to the west at sunset, which every night lately I've been looking west anyway, because Venus, you can't miss her. She's bright and she's beautiful and she almost looks like an airplane coming at you because the light shining from her is so bright. She's close enough to the sun. She's picking up the sun's glare and, just beaming it right here to us on Earth. So tonight, check out the super crescent moon, and she will be conjunct her sister Venus, and it should be a magnificent view. There was something else I wanted to say about the super crescent moon. Oh, when we have a crescent moon like this in the northern hemisphere, you actually can see the whole of the moon. It's called earth shine because the sun shining off the earth, a reflection of the sun shining off the earth is visible on the moon. And what we see is the faint outline of the complete moon, but what's lighted is only the crescent moon. So I'm anxious to look at that. We call that earth shine. So we have earth shine, a super crescent moon, and Venus all in the west at sunset this evening. Go out and take a look. Hopefully there aren't clouds. Right now it's cloudy, but I think by the end of the day, it should be sunny again, and I'll be able to take a look out there tonight. Woohoo! And as such, as above, so below, here in the Earth or on the Earth, we also are noting a moon conjunct Venus day right? If I'm telling you up in the sky we're going to see the super crescent moon conjunct Venus, then also astrologically we're going to experience a moon conjunct Venus. That makes this a very emotionally satisfying day, right? Love is available. Our emotions are what's the word I'm thinking of? Equine. Nice, lovely, right? Nice, smooth emotions. Not that there won't be ups and downs of emotional energy, but we are more in love with love when the moon is conjunct Venus. And, I just feel all of that energy as something super positive today in light of some of the more chaotic things that we've experienced over the last several days, several weeks, maybe even months of, chaotic energies. Today, we have something beautiful to look forward to, and that is the moon conjunct Venus. The only other odd thing happening today with the moon is a sextile to Uranus. And I see that already in my own day, as now not only do I have my day to look through, but I've got these 30 or so charts that I'm going to have to put together and get out to people. And I'm pretty fastidious when I do this. So it's not something that I can just, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and, send them out. Oh, no. So it will be a process for me to go through. And that's why I say, if you don't get your chart right away, don't get mad. I will get them to you as soon as I possibly can. We also have the moon in Gemini today. And at a later part of the afternoon, the moon is going to be moving out of Cancer, or out of Gemini and into Cancer, which means we have a void of course moon today. Not as short as we had a couple of days ago, where what was it, a like 16-minute void of course. This one on the West Coast begins at 11:19 a.m. and lasts until 2:48 p.m. Pacific time. That puts it at 2:19 p.m. to 5:48 p.m. East Coast time. So really only a few hours, not terribly chaotic in this case, or just remember though, that is not, those hours are not going to be the time to start something new. Hours are not going to be the time to go interview for a job unless it's already in the works and there's nothing you can do about it. And Tina, that's so funny, because I was just thinking as your name popped up, you were going to let us know how the job search was going for you out there. She says she has more interviews today, but I'm betting it's part of the same group that you've been interviewing with over time. So hopefully that isn't going to make a big difference for you, except that maybe a positive thing here. Good morning, Londa. Good morning, Gail. Gail says, good morning, Janet. Love your post. So much happening. Perfect timing. There is a lot happening. There is, but today's a lot happening is the good stuff. And I like that. It's like having a break. Debbie says, I'd love to play that again. So Debbie, you can fly here. I have a 1-bedroom now, not a 2. We could cuddle, right? We could cuddle. Come play the game anytime. Anyway, I'm thinking of, oh, never mind. I don't want to say that out loud yet. Michelle says, so magic. Oh yeah, that we've already read that comment. Great. So Tina, we wish you luck in your interviews. Hopefully this is finally going to button it up and you're going to get that job that you so want. And let's see, today I want to talk about something that's coming up here in the near future. It's not here right now, but it's also something that we deal with on a regular basis, and that is retrograde planets. And at some point during the summer, we're going to have 7 planets retrograde at one time. Is that a 5 and a 2? 7. And that's a lot, right? That's a lot of planets retrograde at one time. So I thought it would be worth us going through what are retrogrades, what does it mean for us, and maybe even just a little quick review of what each planet when it's retrograde means for us. How can we best use the energy of the retrograde? So I don't want to give you all the dates and such. I'm going to give you some, sort of dates. At some point, I will give you all the exact dates. So I want you to, this morning, I thought I'm going to go to my trusty dictionary.com and look up the meaning of retrograde, right? Just because I thought it might be kind of interesting. I love words. So I thought if we break it down, retro, something from the past, grade, something maybe that is, happening in a stair step sort of way. When you look up the word retrograde, the first definition is a degenerate person. Seriously, have you ever heard of that before? A degenerate person is retrograde. So I started chuckling over that. I thought that was kind of a good laugh because it really doesn't do the word justice, right? It really doesn't. A retrograde, as it relates to planets, is a time where a shift occurs in the expression of the energy of that planet. So if the planet is in forward motion, which we call direct motion in astrology, it is expressing itself in your outer world. It's expressing it on the world stage. It's expressing it in the things that you do outside of yourself. So what you do in the world, how you interact with people, your relationships, the world stage, of course, as well. When a planet turns retrograde, it brings us to more of the inner dynamics. The time period of a planet in retrograde often brings up people from our past. I can't tell you how many times Mercury's gone retrograde, and I'm suddenly getting phone calls from people I haven't heard from in a long time. I've had clients who've gotten contacted by ex-boyfriends, right? People they haven't talked to in weeks, years, or months even, called them back during a Mercury retrograde. And in a retrograde time, we really have a chance to complete things that have been left undone from the past. So it's a great time when planets are retrograde to dust off, the old project, the old art project, like I have this beautiful cross stitch I've been working on now for almost 2 years. And I will go months without doing anything on it. And then suddenly I'll be back and be working like a fiend on it. And I almost always know that that's happening when planets go retrograde because the outer world quiets down a bit and the inner world then becomes a little bit more fanciful and a little bit more worthy of my attention. So we have retrogrades that bring us the more inner expression of the planets. We have the past that comes back up, sometimes to haunt us, right? If we've left something undone, we're probably going to have it come back up at us during a retrograde. And it gives us that opportunity to bring things to completion, kind of maybe like a full moon, a jacked up full moon, where we can, see complete revelation about what comes next, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to call this the Summer of Retrogrades. And here's the list of what's going on. Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto are all retrograde from June 26th to July 10th. And on July 5th, just for fun and grins, throw in Chiron. Chiron turns retrograde. So for 5 days there, we will have 6 planets retrograde. Yikes. Then on July 10th, Jupiter turns to direct motion. And when that happens, we go back down to 5. Well, let's see. Am I counting right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We go back to 5, July 10th. And then July 26th, Mercury turns retrograde. Now we're back up to 6 planets retrograde. And then on August 7th, Uranus turns retrograde. And now for a time, we have the 7 planets, 7 of them in retrograde motion. Yeah. I hope you're ready for that. So I made a quick little list of things for you to be aware of when a planet turns retrograde. Of course, we're all fairly familiar with what to do during a Mercury retrograde, right? We maybe get in touch with old friends and our contacts, people we haven't talked to in a while. We know for sure we're going to back up our devices, our phones, our computers, our iPads, our whatever, because if we don't, we might lose data and in the technological screw ups that happen during a Mercury retrograde. It's a great time if you're a writer to edit and proofread your writing, dust off old projects and get them back, to doing. We do not sign contracts during a Mercury retrograde unless we have reread it 100 times, because you may inadvertently miss something, right? That was not in there that was supposed to be in there, or something that got thrown in there that wasn't supposed to be there. So we always make sure we check and recheck before we sign. And if we can help it, just don't sign anything during a Mercury retrograde. Now, what we're not so familiar with is Mars retrograde, because Mars and Venus retrograde just about every 28 to 24 to 28 months. Leave it to a Mercury retrograde by natal birth to say it backwards. So when Mars is retrograde, what we're really going to be enabled, remember, Mars is the planet of action, right? It's our dynamic forward motion in the world. So when Mars is retrograde, the behind the scenes actions that we take in a business or in our life are more favored than the actual beginning of something new. So for example, you don't want to start a new business during a Mars retrograde. Not a good idea. But polishing up the plans, maybe setting up a date for the celebration of your new business. Maybe it's a great time to do something, that you've been meaning to do. For example, like, what if you have a business and your website needs to be redone, or there's things that you've been meaning to put on your website, or it's just a time where the behind the scenes actions are more favored than the things that you jumpstart and jump out into the world with. This is also a time where courage, patience, confrontational energies can turn inward and can turn interpersonal. So make peace with the people in your life during a Mars retrograde, right? That is the last thing you want, is to be left with a dynamic of anger between people during this particular time. Now, when Venus turns retrograde, let's see, Venus, and I didn't write her down here, but Venus represents our values, and she represents beauty and harmony, and she represents sort of that the energy that we think of as the divine feminine. And when she turns retrograde, first of all, it's not a good time to get any kind of surgery that's an elective surgery. No nose jobs, no boob jobs, no nothing when Venus is retrograde, right? Because what was that girl's name that was in, oh, I've had the time of my life. What was that movie? Anyway, she had a nose job, and when she got done, her face was completely almost unrecognizable, right? You look at her now, and I cannot think of her name, but you almost don't recognize her. And I would guarantee she had that done during a Venus retrograde, because beautifying through surgery during that time is never going to produce the results that you think. And if you're planning elective surgeries or any kind of dental procedures, you want to be very careful about the timing with a Venus retrograde, because there can be more bleeding than normal. And if you already have an issue if you tend toward bleeding, you don't want to have a surgery during that time. Certainly not an elective one. If there's an emergency and you can't help it, well, that's a different story. But elective surgeries during Venus retrograde, not a good plan. But it is a great time to heal any issues that you have in your relationships, anything that's been blocking you from completely loving another person or completely loving yourself, right? It's a great time to do that. If you find that you are in the wrong relationship during that time, it is also a great time to say goodbye, right? To cut that tie and peacefully and lovingly move on, gaining closure, if you will, with the people that you've had to let go of in your life. And I guess the main thrust of that Venus retrograde is about our living from our values. Right now we've been talking a lot about values in the world, right? Because Uranus changing direction or changing signs, moving into a sign ruled by Venus, right? That's why we've been really talking about values. So with Venus turning retrograde, then there is going to be the possibility of re-evaluating what it is that we put our love and attention on in our lives. Now, she doesn't happen to be going retrograde during the summer. She actually doesn't enter the retrograde zone until September 2nd. If you want to know what I'm looking at, it's my little cheat sheet of the one that I was looking for that one day that I couldn't find, and then I found it. I taped it to my printer, so I can't lose it now. She actually doesn't retrograde till October 5th, and she is direct on November 16th. So she's out into the future. We don't really have to worry about her. But it's worth noting what it is that the retrograde brings us for Venus. Now, Jupiter, we're familiar with Jupiter. She spends 3 to 4 months every year retrograde. So what happens then, right? She in the forward momentum, she is about our growth and expansion, the way that we expand into our outer world, how we expand ourselves to fit in an expanding world. Right. So when she turns retrograde, our focus becomes more inward evolution, more inward growth. And she's also in retrograde motion, she slows us down enough from that evolution that we're going through to really work through what is correct for us as an evolutionary impulse and what isn't, what does work, what doesn't work. Otherwise, right, I tell this to people all the time that when Jupiter goes wrong, she can go really wrong, right? She's a pandemic when Jupiter's wrong. It's an epidemic. It's a tumor. Cancer often is triggered by an overabundance of Jupiter energy. And I'm not a healer, so please don't take that as God's honest truth, but Jupiter is often involved when things get out of control. And so we get the opportunity then with a retrograde to slow down and really look and evaluate what is correct for us, what seems to be adaptive and what isn't, and to let go what isn't. And if we're growing on the inner planes, then we're not often seeing the results of that in the outer world until Jupiter turns back to forward motion, which of course she is going to here on July 10th. So we still have some inner work left to be done, growing on that inner plane. And last April, we had 5 planets retrograde. Yep, of 2017. Gail says, wow, I learned so much here. Gail, that is my goal, is for people to understand that we're living astrology. That's why I named my business Living Astrology, right? Because it's a living, breathing entity along here with us, right? And how we live on this planet is helped by knowing what is going on up in the sky, because as above, so below. All right, so when Saturn is retrograde, my favorite planet, I say that tongue in cheek. Everybody's out there going, what? Yeah, tongue in cheek. So when Saturn turns retrograde, well, first of all, Saturn rules form and structure in our lives, our goals, our plans that actually have to have meat put behind them, right? So we need, if you have the goal to become an astrologer, then there are steps, 1 through, whatever that you need to take to get there, right? That's what Saturn rules in our lives. When Saturn turns inward, it's a time for us to reevaluate those goals, those aspirations. If you have a 5-year goal, let's say, and you never look at it again, how do you know where are you in relation to accomplishing that goal? So Saturn retrograde gives us an opportunity to reevaluate where we are in relation to where it is we wanted to go, right? What is it that we get to rethink, we get to replan, to reevaluate the goal and maybe update the goal, right? Maybe over the course of time, maybe you've already accomplished the goal. Wouldn't that be nice? And now you need to set something else. And so in the retrograde phase of Saturn, it is a time for us to be able to do that. And it's also a time for us to take a look at where we've gotten outside of bounds in our lives, where we've grown too far too fast, perhaps with Jupiter energy. And Saturn allows us to come back and put ourselves back into boundaries in some way, or to at least bring things back into where the limits are, right? And I'm a person that doesn't like limits. I hate that word limits. I hate the word restriction. I hate the word acceptance. I mean, I have a visceral reaction to those words, which tells you right there, I am working Saturn lessons in my life, because there is value to working a plan, right? To being within boundaries in some way. Within those boundaries is where you can actually make progress. Otherwise, you're willy-nilly all over the place. So Saturn retrograde gives us that time to be able to do that. Neptune retrograde. Now, Neptune retrograde, she's one of my favorite planets in retrograde, actually, because it feels to me like we are more creative, more music inclined, more poetic. Maybe even the world waxes poetic, but we are also far more in tune with our intuition when the planet Neptune is retrograde. And she's retrograding this summer as well. And she's retrograde until the fall. And I always tell people when this happens, watch your intuition, right? Pay attention, because by the time Neptune turns back to direct when we get into the fall, you're going to suddenly come face to face with where it was that you did not listen to your inner voice, and you'll pay the price at that point in time. So we're very open and in tune when Neptune is retrograde. Our healing abilities go through the roof. Our ability to connect with one another on the psychic realms, in the intuitive ways that we can explore our world, are highly great during that time. What is that? Oh, I wrote, cut the energy vampires out of your life. Okay. During a Neptune retrograde, and I don't use terms like this very often. There are energy vampires people talk about. Essentially, what that means is every one of us makes connections to people or to situations that aren't any good for us, right? They're not good for us. They're not. They're not in our highest and best, right? They're really not helpful to you. In fact, they're sucking energy from you or draining you of your energy. So when Neptune is retrograde, it's a great time for you to look and evaluate what it is out there. Is it a person? Is it a job that you've been working at? Is it an issue that maybe a group you've belonged to that has an issue? And now is a great time for you to cut that tie and be able to see where the drain on you has been. So I don't necessarily like the word vampire, but it was the closest thing I could think of that sucks something, anything, a person that sucks energy out of you, but doesn't empower you to or re-energize you in any way. So it's a great time for that. And when Pluto is Pluto, remember, is the planet that we think of as transformational and empowering. When Pluto is retrograde, and it is right now already retrograde, we have the energy and the ability to confront our demons. And that might be our fears, our limitations, the blocks that we've put into our way. It allows us to take that, what I sometimes call the dumpster dive, right? We can dive into the underworld and we can really do the work on the inner planes of releasing ourselves from all kinds of things, victim energy, guilt and shame, from fears, from limitations, or maybe even if it's something that we hadn't recognized that was holding us back. During a Pluto retrograde, we're really empowered to see that clearer and to be able to take action then on empowering ourselves from the inside out, right? It starts, there was something I said, I heard somewhere where ascension is an inside job or evolution is an inside job. And it truly is with Pluto retrograde, because we can take a look inside, see where things have not been clean and pretty. And now we have the opportunity to purify, right? To let go of some of the things that have been in our way. And I've saved my favorite planet, Uranus, for last, because Uranus just changed signs. And it will be barely into Taurus when it turns retrograde, and it will retrograde backwards back into Aries briefly, and then go forward and move through the last 2 degrees of Aries and back into Taurus as we get into March of 2019. Now, Uranus we know as the Great Awakener. We've talked about the fact that he's sort of this rebel. And when he turns retrograde, what you have to look at in yourself is, are you a rebel with a cause, or are you a rebel without a cause? Because what you could see inside of you very plainly when Uranus turns retrograde is where it is that you've become the contrarian to your own self, right? Where have you done things out of spite? What's that saying that we say, cut off your nose to spite your face, right? Where has that been apparent, right? Where are you not doing the things that are benefiting you? Where are you being that rebel without a cause? We look forward when Uranus is retrograde to all kinds of good things too in the outer world, which it's kind of like, I already told you anyway that, Uranus does things weird. He's upside down in his, he rolls in his orbit as opposed to orbiting like a normal planet would, like normal. He's a contrarian anyway, right? He's eccentric. He has his own unique way of doing things. And when he turns retrograde, it's the developments in the outer world that we often see, the advances in technology, the advances in science, the advances in humanitarian causes. We even sometimes see something big happening that requires a very large humanitarian cause to be started, whether it's a big earthquake, a hurricane, floods, something that can really bring out the more humanitarian sides of ourselves. Uranus retrograde will be a really good time for you to distance yourself from those people that really disrupt your life. They will be able to pull you, if they're not aware of the chaos that they tend to create, then it is up to you to understand that this person isn't helping you. And you can seek to remove yourself from their sphere of influence, right? The last thing you need when Uranus is retrograde, where every last nerve in your body is on fire, is someone who's going to disrupt you further. You just don't need it. So that will be something for all of us to look at as well. And Uranus doesn't turn retrograde until August 7th. So right now you might be becoming aware of who that person might be, or what the situation is that's gotten onto your last nerve. What is it that you really need to release and let go of? So Uranus allowing us to take a look at things in a different way, seeing things from the inside out and the upside down side. So I hope that helps you a bit with understanding retrogrades. They're not something to be feared. In fact, they're often things to be looked forward to as the shift comes more into you personally. Things tend to quiet down a bit on the outer world so that you can focus more on the inner world. And Londa says, just a rebel. I'm sure she's talking about Uranus, not herself, but she might be a rebel. She rides a motorcycle. Come on, she's a rebel. I think what I will do next as it relates to retrogrades, not today because I have to go, but next I will deal with what happens when you have planets in your chart from birth that are retrograde. What does that mean? Some people have almost all of the outer planets retrograde. Some people have Mercury, Venus, Mars retrograde from birth. And so we'll delve into a little bit, maybe even do some chart examples of people. If you've noticed in your own chart that you have quite a few retrogrades, let me know and we'll pull up some charts and we'll look at that. But that will be for another day. All right, everybody. Well, make it a great day today. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking a little bit about the fact that the moon will be in Cancer, and opposing Cancer is the sign Capricorn, where we have quite a few planets. And what does that mean for us going into the end of the week? Yay, tomorrow's Friday. Friday, as Roseanne would say. So I look forward to talking with you all tomorrow morning. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget, tonight I will be on Angie Witzel's page. Angie, did you check in with me this morning? I don't see her out there. So I am pretty sure we are going to be broadcasting live on Angie Witzel's page. And I'm going to post it right here. It is her Angie Witzel Facebook page. And that will be at 4 o'clock my time, West Coast time, 7 o'clock East Coast time. And I will confirm that with her and post that here. It's Facebook Live, just like I do here in the morning. So all you do is go to the page, and when she begins the broadcast, there we will be, right? And you'll be able to, I hope, to interact with us just the same way. I believe she's using the same platform I'm using. So it'll be exciting. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all this afternoon. Well, where we're going to really dig into human design, I hope. So thank you all for joining me this morning. And I love you all. Have a great day. And I'll see you again later. Bye for now.